So, bit of an adventure. As you know, we're going to build a house which is 8-sided octagon, and the design has an overhang all the way around of it, so the roof line extends past the wall, the external wall of the building, by 2.4 meters all the way around. The architect that did it, Maurizio, he actually did another building not very far away from where we live, in a place called Cockatoo, and I believe it's the Bushfire Memorial Hall, and it's a 12-sided building, and it's very similar in its construction and the intended outcome as to what we're going to build. So I think it's worth a trip over there right now, have a walk around, have a look, and get some idea of what this is going to look like when we come to put our one together. So hang on in there and let's see how we go and what it looks like. I was talking to the architect yesterday, and we were walking around the start of the frame that you saw in the previous video and started to be put up. And one of the things that Eliza and I are looking at is the amount of glass that we can have in each of the walls. Now, the original design frame actually had a lot more wood involved in it. So each of the center columns and the columns around the outside were originally going to be wood. They were going to be a hardwood pole, and each of them, there was no steel in the property. Moving away from having a wooden frame, one of the reasons is the current pandemic of the world has made sourcing materials really difficult, was to go back to having a steel frame. And that steel frame has enabled us to look at the design differently. Previously, with the large construction based on wood, there were a number of braces, the wire with a screw thread in them to tighten them up, required in the walls, and that removed the ability to have a lot of glass, because you would have a glass and you'd end up having a steel bar in front of it. Now we've gone to the steel frame, that cross bracing can be reduced because the frame itself provides the structural integrity to maintain the shape regardless of the wind loading, which means that we can put in much bigger windows. And being able to put in much bigger windows also brings the issue of how do I get these bigger windows into the frame, because they're going to be quite heavy, several hundred kilos each. With a deck and an overhang, it also is very difficult. You can't use a crane necessarily to lift them up and then slide or drop them down in front of the house and allow the glaziers to fit them, because the roof overhangs, as I've said previously, by 2.5 meters, and there's also a deck that acts. So you've got to be able to put them over and then push them in, but they could be 400 kilos in weight. So looking at it yesterday and talking to the architect, we were coming up with ideas of how are we actually going to get these bits of glass into the frame. And one of the ideas we're going to look at is actually do it from the inside. So the property itself, once the frame is up around its circumference, is not necessarily put in all of the steel beams, so that we can still get a machine into the property with the glass and actually lift it up and place it into position before any of the floors are put in, and go all the way around where these large panes of glass have got to be put in, and actually address the glass before the floors. Need to investigate this a little bit more, because it's going to be a challenge. I'm sure that it's going to require some planning. Another reason for having difficulty bringing it in from the outside is that one half of the building is up against a bank, and there's a large drop, and the driveway below is on an angle. So trying to put in a crane is also going to be very difficult, because being able to give the crane a level footing is probably going to exceed the crane's ability and its jacks because of the angle of the driveway. So there are a number of challenges that are presenting themselves with actually getting this house built, in moving some of these heavy items. More on that when I figured out how to do it. So it's worth talking a little bit about the building itself. Being 8-sided, it is not your normal shaped house. The diameter of the property or the house is 14 meters, and it has a central stairwell with a 180-degree staircase taking you from the ground floor up to the first floor. And that staircase, each of the treads on that the stairs are independent from the one around them. They are cantilevered out of the wall. The other aspects to the property are obviously is the roof itself, because the roof has an incorporated veranda effectively, or an overhang all the way around, which is, as I said just now, 2.4 meters. And one of the concerns is whether that is going to look dark or not. I think it's going to be okay because it's a 2-story property, and the overhang really is going to go and shelter that summer light throughout the day and keep the house cool. The beauty of having such a large overhang is that the deck, which is actually up at the first floor, has a protection for it all season round. So it doesn't matter where the weather's coming from, or it doesn't matter anything to do with the severity of the weather. The space, the outdoor space, is going to be usable for the entire period. And I think that gives it a huge advantage. I'm sitting in the car here driving over to look at this similar build, one that was being previously done by an architect. And all I'm starting to think about now, or can be concerned about, is the construction process. Obviously we've got the groundworks done, the frame is starting to go up. The frame sequencing in itself is complex, because we need to be able to get a crane in to do certain members, and once we started to get up to the first floor and up to the roof, the bringing in of the steels and being able to work on it needs to be considered. Where does the scaffolding go? When does the scaffolding go up? And to what magnitude does the scaffolding need to be, and when? So there's a sequence of events which are starting to require some planning. And this is going to go on, as I was saying earlier about the glass. Putting the glass in is going to require sequencing as to when it happens. But there are a number of other areas that are going to need this same approach. And there's a number of thoughts that need to be put in place. So some of the design isn't finalised yet. For example, the ceilings. On the first floor, we've got 2 options. We can have the ceilings flat, or we could put the ceilings at the same angle, the 5-degree angle, with that of the roof, and actually track them up. So once you put the roof lining on and the insulation in, you could then have the ceiling and leave some of the timbers exposed, and certainly a number of the steels exposed, because one of the things that we're really starting to become aware of is how we can use the industrial framework to actually be part of the architectural presence of the property, instead of hiding it all behind chip rock and box it all in, is actually start to have some of this steel work exposed and actually integrate that into the design of the house and the final product. And I think that there's a lot of stepping stones, and I suppose the beauty of it is that once we've got the structure up and we know what the external materials need to be, and there's all the bushfire requirements, the BAL 29 rating. So BAL 29, I think I've said this previously, is the rating that's been assigned to our build based upon it's prone to bushfire environment. Now, these rate from no issue at all up through several degrees, and we're in the middle. So our BAL 29 is about in the middle, and some of the regulations there are that you can't have under-house spaces that are able to receive embers. The property's got to be ember resistant. So under the property, under the eaves, any of the vents, they've got to be ember proof, such that if a bushfire does occur, that we don't end up being able to have hot embers get inside the property and become a fire risk from the inside. The other elements to a BAL are the material finishes. So the frame, the windows, the coverings on the walls, the external render, all need to have a certain degree of protection against fire. And that obviously steers us to what we can do. You know, there's steel being used instead of some other alloys, which would melt under hot heat. The deck and a number of the elements of wood are sawn hardwood, because that hardwood, and again, the hardwood is one of I think 7 species that we can choose from, that the state of Victoria allows to be considered resistant to fire. So they're not fireproof, but they're difficult to ignite and they burn very slowly, such that the intent would be that if the bushfire did come close to the property, that it would blow through, and the property would be resilient to that immediate extreme fire heat, and the fire would move through, and the property would survive. You can put sprinklers on the property as well, and we've got a requirement to have a concrete water tank. So I'm digressing a bit here, but for example, on the property there is a 55,000 litre concrete water tank, which all of the rainwater from the shed, from the existing property and the property we're going to build will drain into. And then off that is a not electric, it's a petrol driven pump, which moves water from that tank up to a holding tank above the house, which is the water supply for the current property. We are looking to see if we can get city water access onto the property and not rely on the tank water, and then the tank water would remain there for purposes of watering the garden, but also to provide some sort of protection, because the pipe work from the tank is all protected, it's all subterranean, it's underground, and therefore its best endeavours to protect it and give it longevity, such that if again a fire came through, we can use the contents of the water tank and pump that water up to enable the property to be automatically watered. I'm not planning on staying. If a bushfire comes close, we will be leaving. We will be leaving long before it becomes a threat. But automation will be set in place to give it a go. So okay, so here we are. So it's the Ash Wednesday Bushfire Education Centre. And what I can see from here are certainly design aspects that have carried across into our property. I can see the overhang. Okay, so this is basically the design, which is going to be very similar to the one we're going to have. This overhang looks about 1.5 meters. One of the options we considered is the chains on the gutters, same to this, but you can see the design is very much in similar design to what ours is going to be, although the number of sides is increased. Just going to walk around the property. I actually put the ceiling flush with that of the roof at the 5 degrees, and then there's that central atrium, which would then be where the staircase and how that would hang. But it certainly gives us a concept of what we're looking at. This is bigger than I think. I think the diameter of this property is it's larger than ours. But the concept and the shape of it and the what that central piece is going to look like is exactly the same. I think it gives a better view of what it might look like. So that half circle where the desk is would actually be what our staircase riser would look like, and that would be the balcony rail from upstairs. And then that central column going up through the back there where the fire siren lights are would be the wall. So yeah, it's good. Okay, that was interesting. So you get an idea of, well, it's given me an idea of what this would actually look like. the external finishes and fixtures of that build are similar to the ones that we're going to employ, but I think I want to use more timber. We've got a large amount of mountain ash in our block, or on our block, and some of the larger trees that fell down a few years ago, the previous owner had those rough sawn into planks. They're about 4 meters long, and there's different thicknesses, and I think that those need to be employed in the build itself and be used inside the house to offset the industrial nature of the steel and to break up the monotony of plasterboard covered in paint. I think that one of the bits we have an opportunity to do here is have that blend of wood, plasterboard, steelwork, to actually offset the inside of the property, to give it some real character, but at the same time look to see how we can employ different materials and finishes, still BAL 29 compliant, bushfire compliant on the outside, such that it doesn't just look like a big cylinder. And I'm keen to sort of see what we can do there to enhance that finish. The good thing is, of course, that the property itself isn't just isn't the same on the 2 floors. It's not like you walk around the bottom of the ground floor of the house and it's all an external to the circumference of the build. Actually, there's a piece of the ground floor which actually is set in, and that provides a covered deck area where when you come in through the front door and you walk towards the stairs, on your left-hand side will be a bench seat, a half-circle bench seat and a window, and then there will be about a 3-meter overhang of the upstairs of the property, and that will provide an inside deck area which would get the morning sun. So the property itself has already got some sort of character features built into it, and what we're going to do is continue to exploit those to see what else we can do to the exterior to enhance that architectural character that I think we can achieve. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. That was just a little trip, get out and about, have a look at something which has got a large similarity to what it is we're doing, get some ideas from that build as to what we can do with ours, what might be good, what enhancements we can make, what sort of design changes or that we can make upon what we've just looked at, to actually capitalize on the materials available to us and many of the ideas that we've seen through other people's builds and other houses that we can incorporate into our house. Anyway, that was a little insight as to what it is we're doing, and I hope you enjoyed the journey. Please subscribe, please like. We are right at the beginning of this channel's life. I think this is video number 6, so it is the beginning, and the journey is just starting. And hopefully my cinematography will improve over the time as well, and I'll become a little bit more competent in the editing and actually the way I present the content to you guys to actually provide something that's interesting. But I will endeavour to keep you informed, and there will be plenty more videos to come. So once again, thanks very much, and all of you stay safe. Bye.